let's start off with the good, Mike. How are you feeling about that Raiders-Chiefs game?
I feel fantastic. The Christmas miracle indeed happened. Um, I, I I felt pretty early on in that game. I felt in the first quarter like, yeah, we're gonna win this game. And I know I texted you and I said, like I take it back. I should have never said anything about Josh Jacobs being out. I should like you run it back from last week's episode. I was all in. I was like, give me the Raiders. We're gonna win. We're gonna get the Christmas miracle. We're gonna win. I said in the off season the Raiders will win at least one game this season against the Chiefs, and I was standing by it. And then at the last second, I was like, but I'll just throw in like if Jacobs plays. But it was like I thought Jacobs was playing. I thought Jacobs was playing against the Chargers, and he sits out. And I was like, he's playing against the Chiefs. Like he was healing up just to play the Chiefs because there was talk like I think Antonio Pierce before or after the Charger game said like, Josh Jacobs was trying to go and we appreciated that, but we wanted to preserve him. So I was like, he's going to play. He's going to play and we're going to beat the Chiefs. So just to speak on the Charger game, just in the fact that I just said, mentioned that 63-21 win. Just had to mention that again. I did hear something interesting recently that part of the reason why the Raiders kept running up the score on the Chargers was because they were going to play the Chiefs the following week. So they wanted to mentally prepare for that and just keep it all gas, no breaks, and continue that going even in the second half when they were already up 42-0. So I didn't consider that as a reason for why they ran up the score, but it makes sense, and now it tracks. You go out there. Okay. The first quarter of the game against the Chiefs had negative yardage on offense. I think it was like the Chiefs had like negative 25 yards at the end of the first quarter. And I was watching the game with my stepdad, who's a Niner fan, and I was like, that's the same defense that played the Chargers last week. And then I don't know if it was the second quarter. Yes, in the second quarter, they get the back-to-back touchdowns a second week in a row. 2 weeks in a row, the same defense, back-to-back touchdowns within 7 seconds. A fumble six with a fat man touchdown, and then a pick six by Jack Jones. The same exact thing happened 2 weeks in a row.
Before you move on from that,
I was going to kind of go quarter by quarter, but I'll just say things here.
Okay. I do want to stay on that point since we're talking about the pick six that Jack Jones had. Travis Kelce on his New Heights podcast with his brother Jason, he said that they gave the Raiders the game as like a Christmas gift. To me, it felt more like the Grinch stole Christmas, and I want to know how you feel about Jack Jones after the pick six going up to a little Chiefs fan in the front, the front row, whatever section it was, and going to hand them the ball and pulls it right back. How do you feel about that?
I loved it because I think Chiefs fans deserve that shit. But granted, it's a little kid, right? I will say this, though. That was all a camera trick. That was all a matter of how you see things that are presented to you. What actually happened, Jack Jones explained on Twitter. You could probably find the tweet, but it's whatever. Jack Jones, let's see if I can find his ad at least, so maybe you can search for it. So basically what happened was Jack Jones gets the pick six. He stares down Patrick Mahomes. Amazing. And then he goes in, and I was, okay, literally the way that this happened was hilarious, okay? We were watching the game on CBS, like usual, right? That's how I like to watch my football games is CBS. Well, at the same time, they also had the Nickelodeon live feed for the Raiders and Chiefs game, right? So I decided, I'm going to show everybody that's sitting here for Christmas with me, my mom, my sister, my stepdad, and my little brother. I was like, let me show them the Nickelodeon feed. I was like, watch, like if they score a touchdown, you'll see like slime and stuff. I literally changed it to Nickelodeon right after the Raiders got the fumble 6. I was like, oh, we just missed the slime. Kickoff, whatever. Next play, Patrick Mahomes throws the pass. He forces it to the receiver. Jack Jones picks it off, takes it for the touchdown, right? Now the slime starts coming. It was hilarious. I was dying laughing. I'm like, we just took a huge lead, and they got a pick 6 to show. I'm going to send you the tweet right now to show the slime, on the Nickelodeon feed. So what happened for me was I didn't see the camera angle of Jack Jones handing the football to the kid because the slime blocked it. So then I see on Twitter 5 minutes later all these people tweeting about Jack Jones being the Grinch and stealing the ball back from the kid. Now here's the thing. Again, it's all a camera trick. Right as he did that, the camera cuts. So it looks like he took it back and he probably went to the locker or went to the sideline and like, ha, 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 right? What actually happened, as you can pull up the tweet, I just sent it to you. There was a guy a row behind the kid trying to grab the football. So Jack Jones was taking it from that guy, as in, hey, dude, this is for the kid, not you. But, of course, the camera doesn't show us that.
Mm-hmm.
So watch the guy in all black. He's trying to reach over the kid, right? And he calls this dude Brad Ziegler Lollipop, which is hilarious.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it's not all
full screen.
Yeah. There he is. He's reaching over the family, trying to get the ball.
Yeah, 2 people trying to snatch it from this kid.
Yeah. So
I thought he genuinely was like, "Oh, you want this ball?" He's like, "Hell no! I just intercepted Mahomes, one of the greatest quarterbacks ever. I'm gonna keep this ball." I thought it was like, fuck, you thought you were gonna get this ball. And that's what I thought.
Oh, that's what I thought too. I was laughing my ass off until I found out later, what actually happened. But as far as Travis Kelce saying that they gave up the game, I can understand him thinking that way because when we got the fumble 6, when Bilal Nichols returns the touchdown on the fumble, that was a play where the Chiefs decided on their own to get cute. And they fucking ate the bullet for it. And I love it. Okay, that was their fault for fumbling the ball because they direct snap it to Isaiah Pacheco, and then he tries the forward handoff to Mahomes, and he and Mahomes bobble the handoff. They fumble it, but at the same time, the offensive line did not block well in that play because Adam Butler was right there. He takes down Mahomes. He doesn't allow him to pick that ball back up. In the process, also blocks Isaiah Pacheco, and then Bilal Nichols comes right back, gets the ball, touchdown. Poorly executed by the Chiefs, yes, but also, Adam Butler and Bilal Nichols were there for a reason, right? Adam Butler, the Raiders have to re-sign him. He's playing like a starting defensive tackle, okay? And as I mentioned earlier, this felt like the same exact defense as last week against the Chargers. I do not think for a second that the Chiefs lost this game. I think the Raiders won this game. The old Chiefs would probably have won this game. Sure, you can say that if you want, because I don't think many teams can lose to a team that doesn't complete a pass from the second quarter and on in a game. That's what the Raiders did to the Chiefs. They did not complete a pass in the second quarter or later in this game, and yet the Chiefs couldn't recover after those 2, defensive touchdowns for the Raiders. Again, as I have said all season, the defense carried this team, and I cannot believe I've said that for a full season. There comes a point where you think, all right, they're just having a few good games, this defense. Like, all right, I've seen it before, 2016, Khalil Mack, right? This is all season. This is consistency. This is a thing now. This is official. Like, this is a good defense. I can't believe it. Yeah, so the one positive thing I'll say towards the Chiefs, this is the only thing I can say, L'Jarius Sneed had a hell of a game. And he's probably their best defender. I know a lot of people talk about Nick Bolton. I mean, Chris Jones is great, but L'Jarius Sneed, man, he was just blanketing Devontae Adams all game. And he got hurt at one point in like the third or fourth quarter, and he came right back in. So Devontae Adams got one catch for 4 yards in the first quarter, didn't receive a pass the rest of the game. And I think that was also in large part Aiden O'Connell's fault. Um, and then before I go quarter by quarter here, just the last thing I'll say, at least for Aiden O'Connell, he, like I mentioned, did not complete a pass after the second quarter or after the first quarter. That's unheard of, especially in a win. Okay. I will say this about Aiden. Obviously, he didn't lose us the game, but he also didn't win us the game. You know, the defense clearly won the game for the Raiders, and then paired with Zamir White running, at the end of the game and getting the big first downs, which that's a big testament to the offensive line. But what Aiden O'Connell did in this game was he was at times inaccurate, especially in the second quarter, third quarter. He didn't complete the passes, but he never threw a pass that was worthy of a turnover. And that's what it helped in winning this game. So I will give him credit there for not throwing a turnover-worthy play or pass. But he also didn't do anything that won the game. He essentially game managed and just didn't get picked off, So take that however you want. I just can't help but think that if you put a mobile quarterback in place of Aiden O'Connell, we would have beat them by 20.
I
Plain
saw
and
you
simply.
earlier. I think you retweeted Ted Nguyen about possibly getting Justin Fields. I could see where this Raiders team would just be a run it down your throat team if they had Justin Fields.
Absolutely. And I know I told you a couple weeks ago, let's say a couple months ago, I mentioned on here that, I predicted the Raiders would trade for Devontae Adams. And I even did it in Madden because I like to be realistic. Well, this year I got Madden, and the first thing I did was I traded for Justin Fields. I simmed this entire season. I actually went in and put every single game up until it was like week 7. I put every single game correctly up until that point, and then I simmed the rest of the season. In the offseason, I traded for Justin Fields because the Bears are going to draft a quarterback. Yeah, I could see it, and I would not be mad at all because I want a mobile quarterback. Do I think that he can carry this team to a Super Bowl? No. But he could provide something that Aiden O'Connell can't while still performing at the same level, if not better, as a passer compared to Aiden O'Connell. It would be a massive upgrade.
Question. What would be the trade package that you would be most willing to give? Like, obviously, you wouldn't mind giving the least amount that you can, but what's the most that you would be willing to feel comfortable with as a fan in order to get Justin Fields?
I would be willing, at least this is what I did in Madden. Maybe this isn't a good way to compare it. I gave up 2 second-round picks. So I'd say what I'd be comfortable with is 2 second-round picks plus maybe like a 5th-round pick. I think that could get the job done, especially if they've already drafted a quarterback or they clearly plan to. I mean, okay, here's the issue isn't the trade package or isn't what the Bears are asking for. It's more of what does the opposing teams also offer? So what do the Falcons offer? What do maybe the Vikings offer? I think they're going to keep Kirk Cousins, but let's just say, right? There are all these teams that are going to need quarterbacks. Maybe the Broncos. What do the Broncos offer? That's something we could talk about later. So I think it's more about what do other teams offer? Does somebody offer a first-round pick? That should get the deal done. Yeah, okay. We'll talk more about the Broncos and Russell Wilson, but as the weeks go by, it feels like more and more teams are going to need quarterbacks this offseason, and this draft is supposed to be loaded with quarterback talent. It's pretty clear to me that trading up for quarterbacks is going to be a popular thing in this draft. I can see the Broncos doing it. Sean Payton's not going to be waiting around, right? I could see other teams doing it. Maybe the cost is too rich for a team like the Raiders, who are still not quite there. But then again, I still think they might just be a quarterback away when you really look at this team. probably like another offensive guard and defensive tackle. But again, I think you put Justin Fields on this team this past weekend against the Chiefs, you beat him by at least 14, instead of just 6 or whatever it was. So, yeah, maybe trading up for a first-round quarterback is too costly, whereas trading for Justin Fields isn't as costly. It won't cost you 2 first-round picks. It might just cost you 2 second-round picks plus another pick.
Like Justin Fields is probably a better bargain than going up and getting an inexperienced quarterback from college that may or may not work out.
Yeah, and the way that it worked for me on Madden, and I'm assuming this is how it's going to be, is he has 1 year left next season on his rookie deal, but the team that trades for him can also determine whether or not they want to go through with the 5th-year option. And I did on Madden. So essentially you can trade for him and you have a 2-year window to either determine is he the guy and re-sign him, or at the end, towards the following offseason, you could draft a quarterback, right? It's essentially what the Raiders wanted Jimmy Garoppolo to be, but better, because he's mobile. He has better capabilities at the quarterback position than Garoppolo ever has, right? He's probably a stopgap quarterback unless he proves that he's the guy, because he could, so.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as the Chiefs game, every time that the Raiders blitz Robert Spillane, it's a sack. And I'm not saying he's getting the sack. It's this beautifully designed stunt blitz attack on the offensive line, and it works every single time. That first drive was beautiful. It was like sack, tackle for loss, sack, Chiefs punt, right? There was a big sack that Andre James gave up to Chris Jones. I think Andre James is gone this offseason. I think you kick Dylan Parham to center and you figure out your 2 guard spots. We have Colton Miller at left tackle. Again, Thayer Munford, he's absolutely killing it at offensive tackle, whether it's left or right. He could be our starting right tackle next year, and if they have to, they can let Jermaine Illuminor walk. There was a fake reverse pass. So a fake handoff for reverse, and then O'Connell kind of did a mini bootleg and then threw it to Jacoby Myers and went for a 25-yard gain. It was probably the best play call I have seen from Bo Hardigree to date. Absolutely beautiful. And then the last thing I have for the first quarter, the Raiders go down the field. They get a field goal, right? It's 3-0 Raiders, maybe the middle of the first quarter. And I put in my notes, field goals won't get it done against Kansas City. And I was right. Now, the offense only scored 2 field goals, but the defense scored 2 touchdowns, and that got it done against the Chiefs. So, paired with, I don't know how many times they forced the Chiefs to punt, but it was a lot. It was a lot more than I've ever been used to. So, it was really nice to see. And then the Chiefs scored a touchdown in the early second quarter, and it was on this wildcat play to Pacheco where he faked a handoff back to Mahomes. It was the exact same play that the Raiders scored on the Chargers with number 34. Brandon Bolden. The same exact play. It was like they were trying to toy with us. Yeah, that didn't work out for them. And they got the touchdown, but, scoreboard, right? The Raiders offense was beginning to have issues moving the ball downfield in the second quarter. A lot of inaccurate passes from Aiden O'Connell. The Chiefs were getting a lot of pressure on O'Connell, and that was a little alarming, but I think that's just a Chiefs thing, Their defensive coordinator is great. So, O'Connell did what he could, it seemed like, but he was trying to predict where to throw the ball rather than having the amount of time necessary to get the throw off. So it wasn't working on offense. The thing I will say, though, the Chiefs were selling out for the run and I think they were trying to dare O'Connell to throw the ball. When the Raiders actually did run the ball, let's say they ran the ball 20 times, I would say 18 or 19 of them went for positive yardage. and yet the Chiefs defense was selling out for the run every single play.
This brings me to my next question.
Yeah.
Is it necessary to extend Josh Jacobs?
Yeah, we had a debate on this on X on Twitter like a week or two ago after the Charger game, and I was like, I mean, I'm keeping him. Like the only player that's under contract for the Raiders at running back next season is Zamir White. Now, I remember in the preseason, there were a lot of people saying that, oh, Zamir White, he sucks because he wasn't running that well in the preseason. I think Zamir White's good. But regardless, I'm not comfortable with only having him on the roster going into next season. I think I would franchise tag Josh Jacobs. I still stand by that. But this is now 2 weeks in a row where the Raiders run all over their opposing team, division rivals, without Josh Jacobs, with a running back by committee, with Zamir White and then a 31-year-old Amir Abdullah. That's impressive. So,
real quick, I do hear that dog barking in the background, but I think it is probably Zamir White, because he's got that dog in him, just running all over his opponents.
Yeah. Yeah, I just Zamir White had a great game against the Chiefs. Not quite as great against the Chargers, but that Chiefs game, it was impressive. But the more time goes by, it feels like, well, you clearly don't need Josh Jacobs, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if they were to determine like, hey, we can let him walk, okay, fine. But I think he's a leader in the locker room. He has a big locker room presence to him, right? I would at least keep him for one more year. I think you can do a lot of damage with him. And having that great running back in the backfield to pair with a quarterback is big. So I still think he's important to the team. I understand that a running back by committee can work, but also if you have that running back by committee and one of them just gets in a slump, it's like you can't fully trust them. Whereas Josh Jacobs, I can trust him any given game, and that's valuable. So I'm still on the side of re-signing him, but I'm having a hard time with giving him a long-term deal as far as, how to build a roster. But I'm easily giving him the franchise tag again, but he probably won't be happy.
He probably won't accept it. Or, because he probably figured that this season was his season to take the franchise tag, and then he was going to get restructured. But I think the complicated factor is that was with Josh McDaniels and Dave Ziegler. And, now things change. You've got Antonio Pierce as the main guy. And who's the GM again? It's Champ Kelly.
Yeah, Champ Kelly. I will say this, if you want to pull up some comments too. One thing about Champ Kelly, for one thing, he was in the building with the Bears when they drafted Justin Fields. That is something to consider. And then, like Joel says, I think in the comments, Antonio Pierce loves Josh Jacobs. So, yeah, if he can take a discount, that'd be cool. I don't think Jacobs is the type to want a discount. I know he held out all offseason because he was under the tag. That's how all the running backs are. Like, they're not going to be happy about it. But what sucks for him is, if the Raiders were, you could call it dumb enough to give him a 4-year deal last offseason, he didn't play nearly as good this season as last year. Last year, he was arguably, not really, but arguably the best running back in football, other than probably McCaffrey, but statistically, right? And this year, it's like, the injuries don't help, but I don't even know if he was on pace for 1,000 yards. He probably was, but it wasn't like 1,600 yards like he got last year. But the offense has also struggled insanely, since Carr has been gone. There's no deep ball, threat this year. So teams can sell out for the run like the Chiefs did this past week, because Aiden O'Connell doesn't scare them. And that's another aspect of why I want a different quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
So,
And then while we have Antonio Pierce, just kind of on topic as a factor of Josh Jacobs, I would just like to take back something that I said last week when I said Antonio Pierce has no shot to win this job. I think as of right now, I definitely owe Antonio Pierce an apology because he went out and beat the Chiefs, the reigning Super Bowl champions, and now the Raiders are possibly, it's kind of a long shot, but they still have an opportunity to go to the playoffs. And I think that they're playing much better with Antonio Pierce at the helm than they were with the previous coach. So not only do I think Antonio Pierce still has an opportunity to win this job, I think he's probably the favorite to keep the job.
yeah, I think I still think that Mark Davis probably goes through the process in part because I think he has to. I saw conflicting reports about whether or not they are allowed to rescind the interim tag and just make him the coach and Champ Kelly the GM without going through the Rooney Rule hiring process. I saw some people that say, "Oh, they can," and others that said, "No, they have to go through it." So we'll see. But I think without a doubt he's the coach, and I think if Mark Davis has half a brain, you keep Antonio Pierce without a doubt. You keep Champ Kelly because he has a hold on the roster, and he probably works really well with Antonio Pierce. Right? They've been working together already, and it was already a thing when Ziegler was hired. Champ Kelly was interviewed for our vacant GM spot. He was in the GM circulation that offseason with other teams too. He left the Bears because they were going through a different regime. Came to the Raiders to become the vice GM, whatever the term is. He's a great GM. He's a great GM candidate, and what he's known for is talent evaluation. He's apparently really good at it. So that's what the Raiders wanted in Mike Mayock. Maybe this is the right guy, Champ Kelly, right? Mm-hmm. I would keep them and give them short-term deals. Right now I think the world of Antonio Pierce, and I think you said you have to apologize to Antonio Pierce. I remember our podcast after the Vikings game. Oh man, what is his name? He usually comments like every podcast. I'm forgetting his name right now. I'm so sorry. He's a Raider fan. He comes in. Anthony. He said Anthony, thank you. Yes, Anthony. He said Antonio Pierce stinks. And I didn't agree with him. I just said, thank you, Anthony. Because I was like, I don't think he stinks. It's funny. Like, I really do think the world of Antonio Pierce. I wrote this in my notes just because I didn't want to forget anything. I was going to read it at the end, but I'm just going to read it now because it's on topic. To me, Antonio Pierce is the head coach, without a doubt. He is now 4-3, a winning record. And my big thing when he became the interim coach, I was like, if he leaves the end of the season, I don't care if they make the playoffs or not. And I had serious doubts about a playoff run, and here we are. We are in a playoff run. We'll get to that. If he ends the season with a winning record, I would give him the job. Well, he's 4-3 right now, and he's got 2 very winnable games coming up. And that Vikings game, I do not fault him one bit for losing. That was the offense. That was a game where Aiden O'Connell lost us the game. Okay? And then Hunter Renfrow fumbling doesn't help, but in the red zone. Antonio Pierce, 4-3 as head coach. He has shown every quality that I want in a Raiders head coach. He's building a strong culture. Very strong culture, especially on defense. He delegates, okay? He lets his coordinators do the coordinating. He lets his captains help lead the locker room, right? He doesn't have an ego. He has brought in great talent like Jack Jones. And I think his name is Janarius Robinson. He's brought in some good players in a short amount of time. Without Jack Jones, I don't think we beat the Chiefs, honestly. Antonio Pierce is a former player, former champion. And, those two things, those bring respect. The team has respect for him. and respect is something that's earned, and it can very easily be lost and possibly never be had in a guy like Josh McDaniels, right? Fucking Antonio Pierce has a stranglehold on the respect of this team right now. So he wants to be a Raider. He was born a Raider, and I think he should remain a Raider for as long as he can succeed. So
I would give him a 1 to 2 year deal in the offseason. That's what I would do if I was Mark Davis, because it's like, he took over and already, like, he didn't have an offseason to prepare with this team. So you never know if that would have, if he would have been even better than he is right now, or if it might have, hurt him. Right.
yeah. Last few things I'll say in the Chiefs game. First off, I've been yelling his name all season, but Malcolm Kuntz, have a fucking game. That was his. I think that's his breakout game. On Christmas, it had the most viewers of the day, I think, of all the 3 different games. 3 sacks, like 9 pressures. He had like career best in every category. He forced another fumble. I think he did. Yeah. But regardless, massive game for Malcolm Kuntz. Trevon Merrick almost got a pick. He was playing pretty well. Nate Hobbs had a huge pass breakup at the end of the game. He had a few other plays where he's like on and off for me. He'll like not be the best in coverage and then also make big plays for like, for a loss or get a pick or a big pass deflection. Again, Jack Jones. Max Crosby was also in there all day. Yeah. Sorry. How do I say it? It was just sorry. Something came up. Why did I just lose my train of thought? The entire defense just had great games. Okay, in coverage, also on offense, in Arrowhead, the Raiders were able to outrush the Chiefs without Josh Jacobs. And I know we were just talking about Josh Jacobs, right? That's another case for not keeping Jacobs if you want to put that money towards defense or something like that. When you can outrush the Chiefs without him, that's huge, right? Plain and simply, I think the Raiders looked better coached. I don't know the last time that I've mentioned this, but they are the least penalized team in football, period. And that seems like a pretty hard thing to do when you go through a coaching change mid-season. And I mean, that's a little bit of a testament towards Josh McDaniels and probably his coaching staff that he put together, but very much so on Antonio Pierce as well. And specifically all of the coaches, that are positional coaches. So that's about all I have for the Chiefs game. 14-20 victory for the Raiders, and a very big victory at that.
Mm-hmm. Real quick, I do want to get to some comments, and then we're going to get into the Colts preview. But Joel says, "Hey boys, happy holidays." Joel, I hope you had a happy, I was going to say Merry Christmas, but I hope I don't know if you celebrate Christmas. If you did, I hope you and your family had a great, Christmas. If not, whichever holiday that you chose to celebrate this holiday season. Joel also said, I think this was commented while we were showing the Jack Jones play. That kid should know better than wanting a ball from the opposing team. Hey, if I was that kid, I would still I want a ball regardless. Like if I was like, let's just say at a Giants game and like the other team hit a home run, I'd keep the ball.
Yeah.
And then Joel also says, I would be down with, this is referring to Justin Fields. I would be down with that depending on what the Bears want and if they even move on from Fields. Yeah, I think that's a good point. Like they might decide to run it back. I don't know. It kind of feels like that there's going to be a change in Chicago. That's just like what my gut tells me, but I don't know.
I think at quarterback, yeah. I think at the end of the day, they're going to draft a quarterback and get some assets through Justin Fields, because as nice as Fields' contract still is for a team that trades for him, it's also like the Bears have the ultimate opportunity to go draft a guy, potentially a generational guy in USC's quarterback, and I don't even care for his name anymore. I'm so out on him.
Caleb
Um,
Williams.
Caleb Williams, yeah. There's no way that we're gonna get him, but also I still get like these little red flags from him here and there. For example, the backup quarterback for USC played in the bowl game, I think last night or 2 nights ago, and threw 6 touchdowns. So what does that say, right? Anyways, I think the Bears are probably going to go with the smart decision and draft a quarterback because now you have 5 years instead of 2 years on a cheap quarterback deal.